Hey, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Andycine 4K C6 on-camera monitor. I think that's kind of the official name of this thing. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what this is, what comes with it, build quality, I don't know why I put two fingers up, features, and I'm going to compare it just a little bit with another budget-oriented on-camera monitor, which is the Atomos Shinobi. This is one that I've had for a couple years now. This is a 5.5-inch monitor, and the Andycine is a 6-inch monitor. Price-wise, they're pretty equivalent. And lastly, I'll wrap up the video with maybe just a couple thoughts on what, if you need something like this, why you might want it and why you might not want it. I also need to go ahead and let you know that Andycine did send me this monitor for the purposes of making this video, but they don't have any input in this video, nor do they get to see it before I publish it. What this is, obviously it's an on-camera monitor, 6 inches. It's 2600 nits in brightness, so pretty freaking bright. And they also say it's a 4K monitor, and what that means is that it can accept a 4K signal from your camera, but it doesn't have 4K resolution. So it's a 1920 by 1080p display. You can also load 3D LUTs in here, up to like, shoot, what's the number? A whole bunch of LUTs. 50 LUTs, as opposed to the Shinobi, which I think you can maybe load seven or 8 LUTs into the Shinobi. It's also touchscreen. So it's got a full menu here that you can just enable by double tapping on the monitor. And then it's got a quick menu here that you can enable by swiping up from the bottom. And then you can also adjust brightness by swiping up and down on the monitor as well. And then it has a menu button on the top, so you can press in this button on the top and then you can navigate the menu by spinning the dial. It's pretty easy to navigate through the menus however you feel most comfortable doing it. Ashes, what do you think? So what comes with the monitor? This is where it really separates itself from the Atomos Shinobi in particular. It comes with a whole bunch of stuff. The monitor, obviously, and this bracket, this goes into an accessory shoe on your camera or any cold shoe mount that you might have on a cage. It allows you to flip the monitor over 180 degrees. So if you're trying to monitor yourself, you can easily rotate it. And the monitor has a auto flip function that you can enable. You also get a Sony NP style battery. This is an NP 970, so it's kind of like the middle size battery as opposed to the, oh wait, this is a 970. This is a, well, anyway, you can see it's the middle one. Oh, it's an NP 750 battery. That's the name of the battery. And it comes with a charger for the NP style batteries. It also comes with 2 HDMI cables. One is a micro HDMI and another mini HDMI. And it also comes with this little carrying case, which is pretty nice. You get a whole lot of decent stuff with it. Again, in contrast with the Shinobi, which basically comes with nothing except the monitor. It also comes with a dummy battery AC adapter, so you can power the Shinobi with wall power. You can power the Andycine with wall power, but this doesn't come with a wall power or AC adapter. But it does come with all that other stuff that the Shinobi doesn't come with. Next, we're going to cover the build quality. It is all plastic built, but it feels pretty sturdy. It's a little bit heavier, I think, than the Shinobi overall. I would say it's on par with most Atomos products, but it's definitely a step down from something like a Small HD, for example. Those are much more expensive also. The monitor is super bright, like I mentioned, 2600 nits. So it's easily daylight viewable, and I'll show you some B-roll of that. And there is a built-in fan, which you can see here, and the fan kicks on automatically when the brightness of the monitor is set to 80 or above. It's really quiet. I can't even hear the fan unless I put my ear right up to it. So, Ashes, you're probably messing my audio up. So, I love you, but you gotta go. There is an SDI version of this monitor too. I think it's just called the C6 Plus. So you can see that there's 2 ports here for SDI, but this is the HDMI only. Another thing with this monitor that I forgot to mention in terms of features is that this has an HDMI out as well, whereas again, the Shinobi only has HDMI in. That's a big deal. Well, it comes in handy in innumerable ways. If you're using this in conjunction with any other people who might want to see what's on here, that means you can take the camera signal. The camera operator can obviously see on this monitor, but then you can pass the signal out again to another monitor. So that is pretty dang helpful. And I'll show you that here real quick. If you have a wireless transmitting system, a wireless video system, like a Hollyland Mars, for instance, you can hook that up and get the signal from the monitor and pass that out to another remote monitor. There you go. So you can see passing the signal from the camera. So it's got the camera is outputting the signal to the Andycine, and the Andycine is passing the signal out to the Atomos monitor. So while I don't necessarily have any complaints about the build quality of the monitor itself, the little bracket or arm thing that you get with it is decent, but it has a little bit of play in it that you can tighten it down on the bottom with an Allen key, but it does tend to come loose. So you can see how the monitor will wiggle here. It's weird. So obviously you just kind of loosen this up and then rotate the monitor, but it only takes like a full turn, or not even a full turn, to actually attach the monitor to that little arm thing. You really have to be careful to hold onto the monitor, rotate, and then tighten it again, because it only it just comes off really easily. So that's a little dicey. And then the other thing, there's a cold shoe mount here, but it's so close to this little knob to tighten it that you really have to have something that's really slim or low profile to fit into that cold shoe. Like a Rode Wireless Go, for instance, won't even really fit here. Well, it will fit, but then you won't really be able to manipulate this little adjustment knob. So just to take you on a quick tour of it, so you can see HDMI in, HDMI out on the side here. On the top, you have the on-off button, and then you've got the menu button and the menu dial. On this side, on the bottom side, you've got headphone in, DC in, so you can buy an adapter to power this over with AC power over the wall or through the wall power, but that's sold separately. You've got a 1/4 20 mount on the bottom. Obviously you've got a 1/4 20 mount on this side as well. DC out, so there's another adapter you can buy, then you can actually power your camera from the monitor. It provides 8.4 volts through this little out here. And lastly, there's an SD card slot, so that's for firmware updates and also loading LUTs into the monitor. Just a quick note for Windows users, you want to format the SD card in your computer and format it to the FAT32 file system. It's the only file system that this will read. Same thing with the Shinobi, incidentally. Next, I want to talk about the features of the monitor. So I already talked about LUTs. You can load up to 50 LUTs, whatever ones you want. It could be creative LUTs or it could be conversion LUTs from camera manufacturers. But there are also a good number of LUTs installed into the monitor already. There's Sony S-Log 2 and 3, Canon C-Log, Panasonic V-Log. There's a lot of HLG and other just standard Rec 709 monitoring LUTs built into the monitor. And there's a good number of assist features in here. Focus peaking, there's zebras. One odd thing about the focus peaking and zebras is that they are mutually exclusive, so you can only have one at a time just enabled on the monitor. So that's kind of weird. There's 2 false colors in it. You've got rule of third grids, various safety markers, center markers, and in terms of the safety markers, here I'm going to do it from the bottom here, you have the ability to do, okay, you can see that. So there's a 4/3 safety marker, and you can see it just gives you the lines on it, but you can still see the full screen. There's also a matte function, which will go ahead and do either letterbox or pillow box, so it'll just black out the screen and just show you that one aspect ratio, which I find is pretty cool. If you're trying to shoot in a different aspect ratio than 16:9 and you just have little lines on the screen, you can still see the full screen. Sometimes you forget, or it can be hard to kind of visualize like what you should be, how you should be framing and how not. So it's kind of cool that you can actually just block out everything that you don't want to capture. And a couple other important ones. Here are all of your waveforms. So there is an RGB parade and RGB histogram possibilities, and then there's also a vector scope. Pretty much anything you could need in terms of monitoring for color and also exposure. One thing I wish is that you could resize them. You can do that on the Shinobi. You have a couple of different options in terms of how big they're going to appear. You don't really have that option on this monitor. And then this one, you have, you can enable LUTs, either the built-in LUTs, or you can load in the LUTs that you have installed via SD card. You also have the ability to, once you load in your SD card LUTs, you can change the camera's gamma and color gamut, so you can match, like, so Sony S-Log 3, gamut, what is it called? sgamut 3.cine. You can put that in there, and so you know that you're monitoring accurately. You can also change the color temperature and the backlight brightness, and also the overall brightness. So you can see here that I have the brightness set to 44, just so I get a decent exposure on this camera, but this gets super bright. You also have options to change the fan speed from off, auto, low, middle, high. And I'm gonna wrap up this video by just giving you my opinion on, is this something that you need? I'll just give you my perspective on when I use something like this and when I don't. When I use them is basically when my camera is on a tripod. And I know especially that I'm gonna be shooting in that position for a long time, I'm definitely gonna bring an on-camera monitor. It just makes exposing, focusing, and just making sure that what's in the frame is what you want in the frame way easier than trying to figure all that out on a tiny 3.2 inch LCD or even a viewfinder. Live events that I know I'm gonna be sitting there on a tripod, definitely gonna be bringing this. I also tend to use these on a gimbal. So if I'm using my Ronin S and I know I'm gonna be using it all day, I will definitely put a monitor on there. It just makes, again, all those same things a lot easier when you have a bigger monitor than trying to shoot on a Ronin with a small LCD on the camera, which, you know, the position of it could be moving a lot. This, you know, is going to be in the same position relative to you pretty much regardless of what the camera's doing. So that's handy. Where I don't like using these is handheld, because it just throws off the balance of the camera so much, and it just makes hand holding the camera very cumbersome. It makes it a lot heavier, obviously, as well. And just top heavy, even using a bigger camera, here's a picture of me with a Canon C200 and an Easy Rig, and the guy next to me, he's using a C70 and an Easy Rig. He has a big 7-inch monitor on his, and I don't have any monitor on mine. I just don't find, even in that scenario, having a monitor is just, I don't find it that helpful. It just makes it a little bit heavier, and it's another thing that you have to be adjusting continuously when you're changing the position of the camera around. So I hope that helps you. I don't ever want to give the impression that you need something in order to go create, in order to go film something, in order to get a job filming something. This is not something that you absolutely need. It can just make your life easier in those scenarios that I outlined.